You see there's a child clinging to their mother's leg with a look of intrigue and terror in her eyes, staring down the body of the dragon as it hangs haphazardly from the rooftop it had perched upon. Its jaw has lolled open, tongue already going stiff as some of the violet spit slime drizzles from its maw. Hilarion raises her head, pointing a clawed finger out toward the defeated drake. If this is not proof enough of our former matron mother's folly, then I do not know what is. Clearly we have strayed far, too far from the protection of our dark mother, too far from she who must be obeyed, who must be feared. The Spider Queen will be obeyed, as is evidenced today, by her sending so many of her servants to bend us to her will. She seems to almost give a triumphant smile to you all as you see her lifting the pommel of her snake-headed whip and smacking it rhythmically into her other open palm. We will return to our ways, the right ways, the true ways, and we will begin by doing what we have always done. Mithranve will again become a holy city for our mother, and we will begin with you. The whip lifts suddenly, pointing apparently dead center at the center of the carnage that you all find yourselves standing in, though she seems to not be staring at any of you in particular. Suddenly, she'll turn her gaze and the point of her whip toward the crowd that's gathering on the fringes of the battlefield. With all of you! And you hear her let out this almost shrill laugh. No longer will Mithranve bend to the whims of Kornbluth. The outsiders will find themselves faced with a reckoning the likes of which our dear Ilithiri have not seen before. We will cast out the outsiders, turn away the refugees, make slaves of those beneath us, and become once again the most powerful people this world has ever dreamed to tremble before. As you would expect, some faces in the crowd are apprehensive. Most notably, you notice the goblin Biscuit, having been thrown earlier onto the roof of one of the nearby buildings, has made his way down now onto the road once more, looking up at her with apprehension as he wrings his hands nervously with his hat clenched in his fingers. And you see not far from him the white bull Changa, mighty minotaur, whom seems to be staring up at Hilarion with a look of contention and anger, his brow draw downward, his nostrils flaring as he huffs. Hilarion, you see, seems to take notice of this and looks down upon him from her high perch. And with the grace of a spider or a ghost of some sort, you see her apparently float downward from her perch, all the way down safely to the ground before the mighty minotaur, Changa, whom you all recognize as being the leader of the Black Brigade, one you had met very briefly. Let's see. And you see as she stands before him, people in the crowd are kind of pushing forward, their eyes wide with apprehension, waiting with bated breath to see what their matron will do. And you hear her as she points her whip out towards Changa. She says, "Kneel to me, slave." "I will not."
Uh-oh.
Tonga snorts, rearing back his head.
Goodbye, Tonga.
Goodbye. You will be missed.
The look he's giving her is clearly one of defiance. "I am not your slave." And you see Hilarion just smiles, and she tilts her head back towards a couple of armored male drow that you can just see peeking out of the shadows of one of the buildings. One of them steps forward wordlessly and raises a blade as though to aim for Chonga's leg. But suddenly he's moving in a very different direction, and you hear the Minotaur cry out in pain, his axe falling and clattering to the ground. The blade has not only come into contact with his legs, but has gone through one, and now both of them, as his body topples to the floor and blood splatters across the pavement. You see Bizkit fearfully retreating back into the shadows, shaking and trembling as tears are stinging at his eyes. Chonga struggles to keep his chest and face off of the floor, but he's bleeding out rather quickly, huffing, quivering, and struggling to stay conscious as he stares up at the drow matron before him. Hilarion steps forward, glaring down the bridge of her nose. He just barely manages to look up at her, his maw opening to speak, to scream, but you see she suddenly lifts the heel of her boot and slams it down onto his head, forcing him down to the floor.
Damn.
You are beneath me. Your whole little brigade is beneath us. Do not forget it.
Real quick, as this is going on, Nicholas has very carefully removed himself from the center of the street. While everyone is focused on Hilarion, he's going to quickly grapple onto Arca, and he's going to pull him over to Nyalkish.
Thank you, Nurse.
And he's going to then very, very quickly pull both of them over behind the stall.
Valid.
Thank you, Nurse Solis.
Yeah, Nyalkish will not even argue as you pull her back. And Ari, kind of noticing movement from the corners of his eyes, also backs away very, very quickly.
It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
As he comes to join you guys.
Just hide over here, it's okay.
Yeah.
Form a protective barrier.
Thank you.
For real. And Ari will kind of look over towards Yulia and Yavari, and he'll make this sort of motion to beckon both of them over with this rather scared look on his face. Clearly very uncomfortable.
Yeah, Yavari's not arguing after seeing what happened. It's like, let's get out of here. Time to leave.
Grab Taffy.
Taffy, please come down from the room.
Oh boy, well, so there's some stuff going on with Taffy. I didn't want to interrupt the monologue, though.
How's Taffy doing up here?
Okay, so...
Well, Hilarion is going on her whole speech.
So as the speech is going on, Taffy is barely cognizant of... He's hearing it, but he's like... He's holding on, right? His breath is shallow. He's got an arrow embedded in his right leg, his right thigh, and an arrow, like, in his chest, close to where his heart is. So he's breathing very shallow. He's got tears in his eyes. He can barely speak. Every time he tries to take any type of breath, it's excruciatingly painful. He's barely scrambled up to his knees when he sees the matron float down. You know, took him a while to sort of pick himself up. And then he sort of hears what's going on, and he's barely registering, like, anything. He's, you know, can't quite stand anytime he tries to put any weight on his right leg where he was shot. He just can't. So he's wobbling and everything. Luckily he's using his speed bow as something kind of a crutch to kind of lift himself up. And as soon as he hears this sickening slicing sound and the whole, you know, you were beneath me, it kind of hits him like, oh, there's things happening, and I'm in no position to do anything at this point. Real quick though, he is gonna look around. Does he happen to see Ari's glaive? or is the dragon like on top of it, or?
Yeah, he had thrown it where Narcellus had thrown like one of the bottles of alcohol, so I think it's probably sitting about like right over here, where there's still probably a small fire going.
Okay.
But yeah, you can see like the large pole handle of it is sticking out from underneath the dragon's wing.
So,
and I was about to say, just other than that, other than that, between you and the halberd is a drow, which you would recognize that this is actually Ziska, whom you all had run into back in the temple out in the Nightlands, who's very focused on Hilarion at the moment. He seems to have kind of forgotten you're there.
Okay, so he's going to, through gritted teeth, bloody gritted teeth, blood's kind of trickling out of him. He's trying to keep himself up and conscious. He pulls up his hood, he puts up his mask, and he's going to basically, while this is all going on, sort of, while keeping an eye on Mr. Drowboy, we're gonna hope these favors hold true, and he's going to carefully, if I need to make a stealth check, I will, but he's gonna very carefully, while trying to keep this dude in his peripheral vision, get us up to the where you can just sort of reach and grab it, and then he's going to then retreat this direction.
Okay. Yeah, then it's all good. So
okay.
We'll say as you carefully make your way forward, you are in an excruciating amount of pain at the moment. But you begin kind of making your way carefully across the rooftop, trying your best not to slide down or fall over any parts of this dragon currently laying sprawled across it. And as you kind of come into Ziska's peripheral, you see his head kind of turns just slightly in your direction, but he doesn't make any move towards you or says anything to you. He's silent, and you can't see his face as it's completely covered by his mask, but you can just see the gleaming of his red eyes from behind the holes in it that allow him to see. And you take a hold of Ari's halberd, or his glaive, and you retreat back to the very edge of the roof.
As he looks at Zeska, as he slowly retrieves the glaive through short hiccups and shallow breaths, he and holding back sobs, he does do a slow nod, and then starts to slink back.
You'll notice, kind of looking in the direction of the manor, that it still remains surprisingly untouched. Despite the bodies of spiders that you pass, the odd spectator, and even the carcass of a beholder sitting atop one of the buildings, nothing seems to have wanted to get close to the very center of Mithranve. And Yulia and Taffy, you guys notice as you go, despite your wounds probably taking up most of your minds, you perhaps then spend the rest of it observing your surroundings as you go. You spot that amidst now the dead creatures, you see that the spiders and some driders that seem to have been left alive and rather unharmed are standing about as if waiting for something. They pay you no mind as you pass. You pass by a rather large spider, nearly the size of your entire body, Taffy, that's just sitting in the middle of the street, but it doesn't seem to respond to you or to anyone else around it. And you see a pair of drider perched on the top of another rooftop as a fire burns behind them, and you notice, Taffy, that their gazes seem to be focused on the direct manor at the heart of Mithranve.
Question.
Yeah.
Is my Drider friend still alive?
Roll a survival check for me.
Oh boy.
I hate that!
I hate that. I am not a fan.
I'm gonna use my Anima Shard because I'm gonna blow it early.
I love it.
Oh. 11.
Oh,
You're not sure?
Oh no!
As you guys are making your way through the city, you don't see him reappear.
Oh. Wow, you murdered my Drider friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't realize it was rolling for his survival.
As you approach, the entrance of this city is certainly heavily guarded, as you see the carcasses of spiders and other creatures littering the ground nearby, and guards and soldiers of all sorts seem to have their mixed share of wounds and blood splattering or having splattered across their uniforms and their armor. And as you all approach in your rather motley crew, one of them goes to stop you, and Resh is very quick to step up to him with rather straight posture and a very serious look on his face, as he'll say to him in Drowic, "You will not stop us. The barrier is fixed. We are leaving." And there's just something in his tone that has the shorter drow man just blink and quickly step aside.
He's like, oh,
Nice.
nope, not gonna mess with that today.
Get him.
Not today, Satan.
But as you all settle down to rest and allow yourselves some time to gather yourselves and kind of dress any still bleeding wounds, Narcellus, as the adrenaline now of earlier has kind of worn down from you, and you're finally able to settle down somewhat, you realize that while having not been seriously wounded in combat, you still feel ill is the best way to describe it. You're not entirely feeling like yourself. Not only are the edges of your vision still rimmed in odd, somewhat shifting shadows, but you just don't feel like yourself. You feel nauseous and dizzy, and most of it settles as you sit down and don't have to move for the moment, but you still just don't feel entirely well.
It's gonna sound insane, but God, I'm glad we're going back to the surface.
you and me both.
Yeah. I'm kinda tired of all the bullshit down here.
Yeah.
How are you holding up?
And
You've
Well-
already stepped closer to him.
he'll kind of swing his head up and, like, jerk back a little as he realizes that you've gotten closer. And you can see his face is more sallow than usual. He's just kind of like more of a cold sweat. Probably has like some chills. And he says, what do you mean? I just fought a dragon. I thought that I was doing pretty okay.
No, you did great. You look like you're getting sick or are sick.
It's probably just the excitement. I'm sure it's fine. Anyway, how's Taffy holding up?
So Taffy.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut anyone off.
Oh, go ahead.
Taffy has kind of found sort of a dark corner to sit in, up next to against like a rock, sort of a crevice or something. It's like he just sort of like he's done this before. He's back up against the wall. His knees are kind of pulled up. He's kind of nursing his kind of rubbing where his chest wound was. He's he's softly sobbing now that he's had a moment to sit down and sort of turn off survival mode. He's got one arm, resting on his knees, but and he's resting his forehead and his eyes on his arm. You sort of see him, upset hiccup every now and again as he's trying to be as quiet as he possibly can as he has his little mental breakdown against the wall.
Oh, my heart.
Julia would sit at a comfortable distance for just in case. But she's letting him have his moment. But just being there.
I know that it's been a lot. The Underdark and Mithranve especially, was supposed to be easy and fun, but and he's gotten down on your level where you're sitting on the ground, and he says, but we are going to be on a little bit of a time crunch if we want to get to Valguaard before whatever this special event is, and
Sorry, what? We're going back Valguard?
And at that, Nyalkish also looks up very confused.
I thought we were running away from Valguard. Why are we going back?
And Nercellis just kind of glances back at them, and without giving much detail, going to leave it to the rest of everyone, he's just going to say, turns out that Faldvin actually saved all of us. And he's being put to death by King Gabroth.
Oh, Father below. Oh my. Oh, I'm gonna need. What happened? What happened while you all were gone?
I just want to get there and make sure that he doesn't. I just want to get there and make sure that Ari's father doesn't die. And I want to put you back where you're supposed to be, with your brothers, and fix everything that's happened, and go home to the fishing district and live my life. So do you think we can do that?
There's a very brief pause as she'll look back up at you, or over at you, I suppose, because I think you're both about the same height. And she'll just give a very tiny nod as she kind of wrings both of her hands together. All right. Okay. And as you all make your way up this slope, you finally find yourselves breaking free of the Underdark and arriving upon the surface once more, greeted by the sight of a bright blue sky overhead and a bright sun hanging in the sky.
I think that this is a good opportunity to give ourselves some fake names.
That would be wise.
As you are approaching the large city, you can see, even from this distance, the castle looming up above the rest of the city built around it. Of course, coming to Valguard, it's first surrounded by sort of this outer layer of farmland and more rural areas of houses very spread far apart from one another, but built in rather close proximity to Valguard for people to travel to for either work or for trade, whatever the case may be. But as you approach Valguard, and you see the tall wooden walls of the outside of the city starting to come into view, you notice off on the western side of the city by one of the entrances, you see that there's a large collection of tent and sort of very quickly put together wooden buildings and pavilions. And you see all manner of armored men and women of many different races milling about and kind of patrolling through this, what appears to be a sort of military camp that's been set up just outside of Valguaard. As far as you can tell, it is Valguard soldiers, as you can see flags of the colors of crimson and gold flying above the encampment. But it's definitely something that was not there when you all last left Valguard, and especially you, Aoife, you don't recall seeing this out by the southern entrance of the city.
Oh.
Preemptively,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have Narcellus kind of slink back a little and pull up his hood just a little bit more, kind of tucking his hair out of view and pulling the peak of it more over his eyes. And he's going to slink back toward Rush, and he's going to say, "If you need to hide, go ahead."
Rush, kind of noticing this gathering of soldiers now sitting outside the city, he gives just a curt nod to your words, and you'll all see Rush just shadow meld down into, like, Narcellus's shadow.
Slurp.
So cool.
And, actually here, I am going to switch this.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh, boy.
Well, that was supposed to
Boy.
change, but
Wow.
that's fine.
A party. It's a scary party.
It's a scary party. We're in danger.
Eva is just looking like extremely confused. Like, this is not how she left Valguard.
Is this normal for well, I hate to use the execution as basis for the event since there's also coordination, but
It's a war party, Yulia.
oh, gods
Are
above.
they? Uh-oh.
Yeah, seems like they're gathering Lairud's forces.
Fantastic.
That's it.
Yeah,
They
to the
can't be for
underdog.
anything.
I presume?
Do what? What did Arcus say?
But are they planning to start another war?
Well, let's see. They did find my mother's circlet on the body of a queen dragonborn with drider venom in her veins. So,
Yeah.
it.
I bet you have a good guess what might be the kickoff signal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I have a plan. He will whirl around, specifically kind of talking to who he hopes is Taffy.
Little, you're right, bud.
We will go around the encampment. There is another entrance off to the west into the fishing district. I can lead us over there. You guys can go in through the eastern entrance, and we just pretend we see nothing.
Yeah, you roll with
I'll
that.
kind of look.
Good.
I'll look to Taffy and say, we can easily pass ourselves off as entertainers. I think I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people looking into cash in on this event.
Yeah, probably. He'll look back toward Arca and Aoife, and he'll say, okay. So here's how this is gonna work. If they're gonna be the entertainers,
Aoife. Your work for the temple, right?
Yes. So,
Oh, boy. So you, my new companion, are going to be, let's see, I don't know. What's the best thing that I can come up with here? Arca, you got any ideas?
No.
You try.
Fantastic. This is fantastic.
Maybe. Forgive me, Aoife. I know next to nothing really much about the order. Are pilgrimages a common thing?
well, yes. There are certain holy sites that have many pilgrims, but I'll probably be recognized at some point in Valguaard since I was
Oh, that's right.
sort of
As they're
well-
talking, I want Ursula's to go up to Arca and just kind of circle him a couple times, looking him up and down. And then I want him to, like, put his hands on his armor and kind of shuffle it around here and there. And he's going to look at Arca and he's going to say, "Can I change you?"
Here
Oh
we
my
go.
gosh, do it.
Do you mean another polymorph?
Yeah, you got a problem with it?
I mean, as long as Arca is agreeable, then I guess
That's
it's
why I'm
beyond
asking
me.
Arca.
Yeah, alright, sure. What are you going to change me to?
Best you don't know that.
Alright.
Oh, great.
Because not even I know.
And, he'll... This is going to be so damn weird. He will kind of back himself up and look at Arca and kind of create, like, the hand gestures that he needs. And you'll hear him say something very quietly under his breath. And, he's going to attempt to change Arca. And I'm going to, send this description to you, Starion.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Terrified.
I'm terrified.
Ethan's very excited. Ready for this.
The last couple of times Polymorph was involved, it didn't go 100% excellent.
What are you talking about? We're
I've
perfectly
heard
fine.
it's a very useful spell.
Well, we
Might be
almost,
good to sneak a Aarakocra into the city.
that's true. Well, Taffy, you were a spider. How would you rate that experience?
As long as there's no books present. I don't think I can handle that again.
We avoid the library then.
He's just kind of staring at the grass, like dead stare. Like he's reliving some kind of horrific moment.
And, yeah, that's what he's going to polymorph Arca into.
Oh boy.
All right, so Arca, you kind of like feel your whole body like begin to tingle as the polymorph spell begins to take effect. And soon enough, the rest of the party, you watch as his wings like shrink down and like vanish back into his skin. His feathers begin to, almost melt down into his body and turn from his bright white and grays and yellows into brown human skin.
Oh.
And, rather than the grand crest up upon his head, it folds downward and becomes this thick, black braided hair. And Arca, you watch as it almost seems like the rest of the party gets smaller, but you're actually just growing taller by nearly a whole foot of
Holy
height.
shit.
And so now soon enough, standing before you guys, instead of Arca, is a human man with dark skin and braided black hair, with a hooked nose and these brilliant yellow eyes. There's something almost in the face or the cheekbones that reminds you somewhat of Resh. And you can't help but see the resemblance between this man Arca has taken the form of and Narshellus. As it almost looks like the two could perhaps be related in some way.
Didn't
Got
know you
another
could turn
dad.
someone to human.
We'll turn someone into anything.
It's probably another
Oh,
Like, Arca, like, touching his face and his hair and everything. He's
I
just like,
take out the
"Oh my
little mirror
God."
that I got,
Oh no.
Oh,
and I
no.
hold it out to Arca.
Arca looks into the mirror and he is like, "Is that me?" And he's like shifting to and fro, like looking at his reflection. And then he's like, "Oh, this is horrifying." He turns to Aoife and he's like, "How do you stand this?"
you do look handsome.
My wings are gone.
There is
That's
a
for an hour. Chill out.
very uncanny resemblance between the two of you.
Tattoo.
Kind of
This
what
is
I need.
good. So, then we'll be, you'll be acolytes, and we'll be going to the temple. But not really.
Perfect.
But that'll be our cover story. That'll be our cover story, and then once we get in through the gates, we'll be good.
Right.
Alright. Okay. I'm normal human man Skanda. What do you guys worship again? Sophus?
Yes.
Oh god. Oh, this is weird.
It's only temporary. It's gonna be okay.
I can't wait for the Looney Tunes moment where Arca jumps off a building and then tries to fly and then can't.
Oh no.
Arca, you just gotta be you just gotta be my father for an hour, okay?
Alright. Okay. I can do this. I think.
You can do this.
Well, I guess we could be brothers or something. That's fine. Cousins with a strange resemblance.
Very uncanny.
All right, so then, everything decided upon, you all split into your two groups. Arca, Narshellus, Aoife, and Nyalkish, with Resh hiding in Narshellus's shadow at the moment, head west to make a rather long circle around the military encampment to reach the western gate. Meanwhile, Runarian, Yulia, Taffy, and Yavari, you'll head to the closest entrance, the east gate, to get into the main portion of the city proper. Let's see. Give me 1 second.
How does Monder's Mondering trope sound to all of you?
I like the alliteration.
I love it.
You.
So many M's.
It's a soft sound.
Monder's Mondering musicians.
Oh,
Can you play an instrument?
I
Well,
think everyone can.
I might have practiced a little bit with where the hell is it? He's patting himself down. No, I don't have it. Oh no. Oh, that's right. I was gonna buy one and I never did. Damn it.
Can you count beats or keep a beat?
Yeah, I can probably keep a beat.
Perfect.
In before Taffy starts rapping.
Please.
Please.
No.
Please, no.
So, I think I'm gonna go ahead and start with the group heading into the fishing district of the city.
Oh, okay.
But I'd first, Aoife, Narcellis, and Arca, I'd like you all to please roll perception checks for me.
Oh boy.
Actually, Starion, could you run in here for me?
Oh, yeah, hold on one second.
Sorry.
Perception.
You know what? I'm gonna use my anima shard on this.
You know what? I might do that too. Okay. Okay, Narcellis got a good perception.
Oh, good. I still haven't used mine this session, so you know.
I'm just like, is something else gonna pop up? But then I'm also like, I didn't want to roll that.
It was like, no. Too bad.
I wanted to use my anima shard. Well, I guess we're not.
Probably reroll.
Can I just roll again?
Darion allows it?
I'll ask when Starion gets back.
Yeah.
I'm holding mine in case I need to make a persuasion
Because
check. I feel like it.
so far, Aoife has been rolling like zeros basically on all of these perception checks.
Oh, bless you.
See nothing, like
Unperceptive.
3s and 2s and 4s.
Aoife seeing less than the drow who's like
Who can't see
something.
shit? Yeah. Aoife's just very oblivious. She's like, she's working on getting like her like you know like temple kind of like vestments on, so she looks like all official. She's like had them like stowed away in some bag this entire time because you're not wearing. It's not smart to wear those in the Underdark.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry
very
about
much
that. It
so.
got really hot in here.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh.
You good?
Oh, good.
You good?
My perception roll was
Oh.
bad, but I meant to roll with my anima shard, but I accidentally just rolled perception. So
Good job.
can I roll perception again?
Oh, you meant to roll with your anima shard, you said?
Yeah,
Yeah, feel free to just roll one more time then.
perfect. Watch, it's not gonna be good. That's better.
Better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go
It's
for it.
passable.
We'll go
So,
for it.
as you all are making your way over to the farthest entrance to Valguaard, the western entrance, rather close to the fishing district and the docks that lead out into the Shimmer, you of course have to make your way around the encampment closest to Valguaard. And as you all go, Narcellis with your hood up and the rest of you trying to not look too terribly suspicious as you go. You'll notice all of you will notice that as you're going, you just kind of glance about, other than at Valguaard, kind of to the surrounding areas. You'll notice that this isn't the only war encampment. You see
no.
that from Valguaard, out to shoot. Sorry. You see pretty much from Valguaard out to the Godswood, you can see, like more clusters of tents and, quickly built buildings and stuff made of wood and simple designs are kind of dotted across the open plains between Valguaard and the Godswood. And you see even further out to the east and the north towards the Green Ridge Mountains, there are even more camps filled with more soldiers. Clearly, it is Valguaard or Leyrid gathering its strength, preparing for war. And as you pass the one closest to Valguaard, Arca, you notice, you just kind of happen to glance over and you see there's this particular figure that captures your attention sitting upon horseback. Looks to be a man in about his mid-30s with light blonde hair that's cropped very short, wearing heavy armor that's decorated in a trimming of gold, and you see this draconic symbol, the symbol of Leyrid, is emblazoned on the back of his armor in bright crimson red. And you see he's followed by a number of other people, seeming to be discussing things with them. And something about his appearance leads you to believe that he's likely some sort of important figure that you just kind of tuck away in your mind for later. And as the four of you approach the western entrance of Valguaard, you already get the feeling that the city is a lot busier than it had been when you were last here. You know, when last you were here, yes, it was about the end of the holiday that you'd been celebrating at the time, but this is a different sort of feeling to it. Rather than people being excited and enthusiastic about celebrating this holiday, it seems people are kind of frantically, at this point, busying themselves with preparing things for the incoming international guests that would be attending the coronation of Gibroth Yorzir. And as you step inside, Narcellis, you notice right away things aren't the same. And Aoife as well, as you two have lived in this part of the city before. You're both very used to the fishing district, having been very clustered, very close together with, you know, haphazardly made houses with straw roofs and, you know, mud over just about everything. You know, it was run down and shabby, but it was home. But now as you enter, rather than being almost suffocated by the amount of buildings that would have been on either side of you before, it's a lot more open. There's a lot of open space here.
They unfishinged my district.
They unfishinged my district!
You see that the dirt, or the road is no longer mud and broken rock, but it's instead dirt and grass and, while not cobblestone of the nicer parts of the city, it's a lot nicer than it was. The buildings even look relatively new with very little wear on them, and you see there's maybe still a couple of older ones tucked away in the back closer to the walls. But everything's more spaced out with room to breathe, and while it feels perfectly nice for you, Arca, you know, even if you don't have your wings, it's a little nice open space. For you, Aoife and Narcellis, it's unsettling.
I'm going to very slowly turn and just lock my gaze on Aoife's just dead silent.
And my gaze sort of meets Narcellis, and he can see that there is just there is just fear.
We're sharing the same expression.
Yeah, it's the same feeling.
And I don't know if he's gonna say anything. So as they come through the front gate and they see all of the changes, you said there's a lot of like space between the houses. Do they see anything off?
What exactly are you looking for? Like,
Just anything that would be alarming in nature.
Make a perception check, and Aoife and Arca, you're
Ava's
welcome
doing it,
to
so.
make some as well, if you'd like.
Okay.
We're rolling 12s today.
12, 16, nice.
Oh no, this is very Stepford. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Stop gentrifying my fishing district.
And 11. For Aoife and Arca, you guys don't really notice anything particularly alarming. You especially, Arca, while you had been in Valguaard for some time, nothing's really sticking out to you that might be strange. You know that a little ways down the road to your left as you're entering into the city, you know that there's, or at least there was, an area where a lot of Aarakocra tended to gather that you frequently visited. From here, though, you can't really see anything too oddly as you haven't quite reached that street yet. And Aoife, other than there not being really nearly anywhere as many rundown shack-like buildings as there were, nothing else is kind of jumping out at you. For you, Narcellis, as you walk into the city and you're looking about, you notice that between a couple of buildings that you pass, a couple of rather new-looking homes, you see a pile of wood kind of sitting in this narrow alleyway of sorts between these two houses, and you notice the wood at first looks a little strange, looks kind of dark, and you think maybe it must have rained recently here, but as you get a little closer to inspect it out of sheer curiosity, you notice that it's not damp wood or rotten wood, it's burnt wood.
Okay.
Rather, like a rather large kind of heap of burnt wood.
I'll make my way over, kind of dodge between some of the houses, just to kind of get a little bit closer and move on the other side. What is it? Do I need the perception?
What are you looking at? I'm sorry.
The wood itself. I've gone as close to it as
Oh.
I can, like dodging through the buildings.
Okay.
Is
Yeah.
it just like charcoal?
Yeah, so you get up close to it, and it's just this rather kind of large pile of wood that, being up close to it now, you can tell it is definitely charred and burnt. And, you know, as you reach out to maybe kind of break off some of it, it almost crumbles in your hands. But it is like black, like the color of charcoal.
Okay. I'll call Aoife and Arca, and you just hear like Aoife, Arca, and kind of reaching out to touch it for a minute and feeling like the brittleness of the wood. If I turn and look around, is there like a burn area? Is there's I don't know, any other like I guess burn piles? You know, since the buildings are like picked up and made a little bit nicer.
Going with your perception check, now that you've seen this one, you're looking about, maybe looking for something similar, and you do kind of spot, kind of peeking around the corner of another rather new looking house is some more pieces of charred wood kind of poking out from around the corner.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying, and as you're inspecting for like more of these piles of wood, Arca shows up and walks beside you and what's up?
So Marcellus is just turned toward this other pile of wood that he can see. And Arca, since you're there, you can see there are these little beads of cold sweat that are starting to show up on his hairline from underneath his hood, and his hands open and close rapidly at his sides, like he's trying to shake the pins and needles out of them. And he's not going to respond, but he's going to walk towards it.
Oh, goodness. And Aoife's just sort of, like, following behind him. Sort of her mouth just, like, partially open as she's trying to digest the fact that so much has changed so quickly. And the fishing district, as she knew it looks, it's not the same as it was. And she'll just sort of turn to Arca and say, something's wrong. Yeah, something's wrong.
And Arca is definitely slower on the uptake since he hasn't lived here as long, but he does kind of slowly piece together, like, from that everything in the fishing district had to have gone somewhere, and these piles of wood sure do tell a not good story. And you just hear him say, "Oh."
I would, if it's okay, DM. I'd like Marcellus to try to go to Fallon's house.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys, Aoife, Arca, do you follow Narcellus?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will. I mean, Aoife has sort of
Okay.
an inkling of where he's going once he starts going in this direction, so she's absolutely following him.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so yeah, Narcellus, do you say anything before you go, or are you just going?
Oh, he's not talking to them. He's tunnel vision.
Alright, so you start going across the fishing district, trying to take the pathways you once knew, but nothing is the same anymore. It's like you're in a familiar place, but it's completely foreign. And you weave your way through some of the buildings and across a few new dirt roads that have been made. And Arca, as you guys go, you notice the area where the Aarakocra had mostly been living in, where you frequented when you lived in Valguaard for the time that you did. You see now that rather than the rickety houses and that they had lived in, you see there's a number of tents set up in a rather large cleared out area. And you see a few Aarakocra that you recognize kind of milling about with one another and chattering away. But you find it odd as they're living in tents now, it seems, rather than wherever their homes had once been. And you could have sworn they were here in this area. But you continue onward, and as you all pass by a last row of houses, you come upon the site of what was essentially kind of the back corner of the fishing district, tucked between the wall that separated the city from the docks, as well as the cliffside that leads up to the nobles' quarter and the castle for the royal family. And out here on this main road, to your right, you can see the Temple of the Triad looming farther down the road in the city's heart. Aoife, you can even see your house from here, off to the sort of right and somewhat ahead of you all. But directly ahead of you, in the corner of the fishing district. All that stands here now, where it used to be, yes, it used to be dirty and covered in mud most of the time, the walls of houses and different buildings beaten by rain and the salt water coming off of the shimmer. It was home for a number of you. It was, Narcellus, where you spent a lot of your time, where you grew familiar with the faces of the people that lived here, and you as well, Aoife, you came to know a lot of people, Drow especially, that you did your best to help. And now you find yourselves standing before the charred remains of the fishing district. Every house that you can see that's still standing is burnt. The wood blackened, the straw rooftops completely burned away and gone. Roofs made of wood or shingles now caved in from the fire that had eaten them from the inside out. The ground is scorched black. The trees are nothing more than just burnt wood barely standing against the wind. You see that there's what look to be a couple of watchtowers that have been erected upon the sort of outside of this final area of the fishing district that has not been rebuilt. And you can spot a couple of guards standing watch at the very top of the towers. And you see, dotted between the burnt and ruined buildings and scattered across the scorched grass, you see there's a number of tents that have been pitched for the people who have now been essentially forced from their homes out of whatever fire had ravaged this part of the city. You see drow that you both had once known, humans and tiefling and whoever else lived in this area. You see them all now gathered around tents and small campfires, looking even more disheveled and grim than they ever had been. And Narcellus, you continue in, despite the wreckage surrounding you. And you make your way to the very back of the fishing district, where you knew Fallon's house sat at the very back corner where the wall touched the cliff. And as you come to the house, to this place you had lived in for over a year or so, you are met with the similar sight of the rest of the fishing district, of a house that's nothing more than a burnt shell of what once stood here, with no signs of life nearby.
So he's gonna stand there for longer than he should. And most of it is because his legs feel like lead, and he has this, I can only really call it like a lump under his chin and his throat. And Rush is still in his shadow.
At this point, as you come up to Fallon's house, Resh has now kind of come to your side. And he's kind of staring up at the building with a unreadable expression on his face.
You must have gotten out. right? He surely must be somewhere. Probably evacuated, ran away.
You see, Nercellus's hands are just balled very tight. And the face that you know to usually be, he's mischievous, he's a little shit. It's usually cracking a grin or just like making some kind of stupid face at you. His mouth is small and thin. And his jaw is set, and his eyes are so wide that you can see the black just around the whole bottoms of his purple pupils. And he doesn't say anything to you, Arca.
Yeah, understandable.
But he will turn back very quickly. And you'll hear his boots kind of hitting against the, I'm assuming, ashy soil.
Yeah, pretty
And-
much.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I was about to say, yeah, pretty much the entire ground here is nothing but blackened wood and soot and ash. And yeah, it kind of crunches beneath your feet as you walk.
You said that there were drow that I recognized before.
Yeah, so there are, like, probably the closest little camp to you. There are some people you recognize there, perhaps either a drow or you see there's a rather familiar Triton sitting close to a campfire.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Also, really quick, just to check in with y'all.
Is anybody dying?
How we all doing?
I'm still alive.
I know it's late.
I can keep going.
We had a couple things we wanted to get to if possible. I say we, Kayla, had a couple things. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Listen,
I'm like already. I'm like crying. So
we
we're
need
here.
to.
I'm so sad.
We gotta at least know if the dude's alive.
Yeah.
As far as I know, Kayla had a couple things for Arca, for I think Taffy as well. If we could maybe keep going for another
Yay,
no.
another dream sequence for Taffy!
Oh no, it could be worse than that.
Awesome.
Awesome.
But,
baby.
Familiar Triton.
Yeah, so...
Okay, I know who it is. There's only one Triton we've met.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, you go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. Anna, stop crying. He's fine.
I'm
we're all
so
fine.
scared.
Oh no.
Marcellus will go up to the Triton, who I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, is the guy who was at the inn that was always asleep.
And as you approach, indeed it is.
Is he awake?
But yeah, you see the Triton. Kibis is his name.
Yes. Kibis.
Which I'll just, yeah, whatever. There you go. And you see he's kind of sitting probably on just the ground at the moment, and you recognize him by the same kind of shabby vest that he's always worn over his bare chest and a simple pair of pants or whatever the case may be. And yeah, he is awake, kind of sitting at the fire, maybe has a small like cup in his hand of what's probably just water or something of the sort. But what do you do as you approach?
It's a very brisk approach.
Mm-hmm.
The same expression is just on his face as he pulls back his hood into the sunlight. And he reaches forward and just grabs this Triton by the front of his shirt. And just hauls his ass to his feet. And just says, "Where are they?"
And as you pull him up onto his feet, he has this look of like shock and surprise as he's dropped what little water he had left in his cup. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Where are they?
Oh,
And
no.
and he like blinks and kind of takes a moment to look you over, Narcellus, as it takes him a moment to kind of fully register who it is that's grabbed him. And he'll say, you talking about the two kids?
Yes. Where?
They're next little area over, and he like jerks his thumb kind of over his shoulder to a little group of tents that are kind of sitting closer to like the cliffside.
He will push this Triton back and immediately go toward those tents.
And
he's running.
Yeah, you head over and you spot probably a more drow kind of seem
Of
to have
course.
gathered over here, sticking together.
To the dark corners, yes.
I'm sorry?
To the dark corners, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, more drow seem to have gathered here together. And you make a perception check for me.
Oh.
Terrifying.
15. All right, and you do see sitting at kind of one of the fronts of the tents. You see there's a drow woman who looks fairly young and youthful, but covered in a mixture of soot and dirt that's staining most of the white hair that falls just to her shoulders, and this bluish skin that's almost black with how dirty she's gotten, perhaps from being around in all of the burnt buildings. And you see next to her, or sitting beside her, as she's trying to hold out some food, you see she's sitting next to a young kid, a male, that you do recognize as Zreth.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems to be that she's trying to convince him to eat something, but he looks very uninterested and isn't looking up at her whatsoever.
Narcellus, seeing him, like his shoulders fall, and he's like, okay. And he makes his way over to stand, and he'll make loud enough steps, like scuffing his feet in the dirt to get this woman's attention. And when he gets her attention, he lowers his head, kind of averts his gaze from her for a moment before maintaining it, and he'll say, do you have a minute? And he'll lower himself down onto like a squat in front of Zreth, and he'll say, hey.
And as you approach, she looks up at you with a sort of cautious look in her crimson gaze, but kind of relaxes somewhat as she gets a good look at you. And at your question, just gives a small nod of her head. And as you crouch down in front of them and in front of Zreth, he looks up as you do so, and you see immediately, looking at his eyes, he's been crying. Like you can see, dried tear tracks falling down his face, and his lip is in a pout as his eyes seem still rather watery. And he looks at you for a long moment. And then suddenly he's standing up, which isn't very much taller than you crouching down there. And he'll suddenly reach forward and grab your shirt with both of his hands. Very tightly. And he'll try to almost shake you somewhat, but it's feeble and not entirely a lot of energy behind it, as his lip begins to quiver, and you just hear him sort of whisper out in this rather raspy voice. Where's Dad?
Oh no.
Oh no.
What are you talking about? And I'll reach up and try to, like, unpin his fingers from my cloak. And,
He is holding on very firmly.
it's just like, okay.
Where's Dad?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out, okay? And I'll kind of look at this woman like, fucking help me.
And she'll kind of reach over and put a hand on Zressa's shoulder, and she'll just say, Child, come now, you really must eat. And he'll, like, throw his arm back to knock her hand away and say, No, not until we find Dad!
Okay. Just, he'll stand up. And he's just like, okay, so they haven't found him. Okay, sure, fine, okay. And are there any other drow around?
Yeah, there's quite a few hanging out, and a couple are kind of looking your way now at Zressa's very sudden outburst.
I will look over toward Arca and Aoife and Bresh, and just kind of go over to one of the other drow, and I'll speak in Drowlic, and I'll say, you guys didn't find Fowlin?
And the one you approach is a drow man that you think you've maybe seen around the fishing district, but maybe wasn't one that you ever spoke to very often. He's a little shorter than you are, has a couple of wrinkles around his eyes with this, deep onyx skin and stark white hair that he has just kind of flowing freely around his shoulders. And he'll look over at you, and you'll see his eyebrows immediately knit together, in this look of concern or maybe pity. As he'll say in Drowic, and he'll respond, well, Gosra's been trying to tell the kids, but they don't want to listen to her.
Tell him what?
About Fowlin, he got caught in the fire.
Okay, then where is he?
He didn't make it out, kid.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. And he's okay, yeah, he's got one leg, but I mean, he can still walk out of a burning house.
It wasn't that easy. He kind of like looks around at everyone kind of here in the camp and looks over towards Zress, who's sat back down on the ground with like his arms over his chest, crying again. The soldiers came a while back, surrounded us in the fishing district, and set the place on fire. Led by that old bitch of a colonel.
That gets him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Actually, he'll say after that, really quick, he'll say, or I guess I should say general now.
He doesn't say anything, and he turns around. And he doesn't go back to Zress, and he doesn't go back to the woman who was trying to console him. And as he approaches you guys, since this conversation was in Drowling, you see a different person. His eyebrows are furrowed down, and his mouth is this tight line. And as he's turned his back to these people and he approaches, he is freely, silently crying.
No.
But he doesn't make a sound. He just turns and he looks at Aoife. And after a minute, like blinking, glances at Resh, and then just looks at Aoife. And he goes, "You didn't try hard enough."
Oh no.
Oh no.
And Aoife, who's sort of been piecing everything together through the limited amount of Drowic that she knows, which is very so limited, to just the expression on his face, to the crying child, at this point, she's just sort of standing with like the back of her hand like pressed to her mouth, as almost if to like stifle a sob, and her eyes are just wide and unreadable, in that it's a mixture of so many different things. It's hard to understand, and she just shakes his head, and she shakes her head in like up and down, as if she agrees with what he's saying, that she didn't try hard enough.
Are you crying? You don't get to cry. And he'll get closer to her. And he'll say, "You don't get to be sad over this. You're part of the Order. How the fuck do I know that you didn't do this and then run off to the Underdark?" Why aren't you responsible too?
And she just she can't say anything back to him, because there's nothing that she can say, because she feels that he's right. So she'll just stand there, sobbing.
Completely disgusted, he just turns this vicious expression to Resh. And at this point, his whole upper torso is just shaking. And he glances from his brother to weird human Arca. And I'm going to ask you a question. Oh, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead, Arca.
Okay. Arca doesn't know what happened in the conversation, but he gets it implicitly what's happened, and he just very carefully places a hand on Marcellus' shoulder.
He will not let him. He will just slap it away.
Okay. All right. Valid there. And he just kind of just sighs and he says, "I'm so sorry."
not as sorry as they're gonna be. DM, I have a question.
Yeah.
Are there any guards? Any soldiers, any guards?
Probably the closest ones you can see are standing up in a nearby, like, outlook tower that's just kind of at the edge of where all of the burnt buildings begin.
I need an out of character moment. To discuss something with Anna and Rana.
Okay.
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 Do I have your permission to roleplay this out?
Like, what are like do like a role play out of character or
No. I'm trying to decide how to describe what I want him to do.
Okay.
It's bad.
Uh-oh.
Nice.
If he doesn't implicate you guys, can I have him attack the guard?
Oh, boy.
No.
Oh boy, well, I guess we're gonna be breaking more people out.
Oh, kind of damn. If this is what he would do in this moment, then I'm to go for it.
Yeah. Go.
I just wanted to make
Nuts,
sure because you guys have the knowledge that he's gonna do this.
Okay.
Oh boy.
And after locking his eyes on Resh's for a moment with this just completely out of character expression on his face, he turns toward this guard tower that has been erected in the middle of the burnt fishing district. And you said that there's a guard at the top? Just one, or?
You can spot like two of them standing up there, just kind of keeping an eye out on things.
They're not gonna be up there for much longer.
Uh-huh.
He's going to get in distance. Leaving them behind. I'm not even sure what Resh is doing at this point, but he's not looking at him, or at Arca, or at Aoife, and he's gonna light it on fire.
Oh,
As he should.
But he's not just gonna use Firebolt.
Oh no.
He's going to cast at the very top of this thing. At level 4.
Oh no.
Oh, boy.
Fireball.
Oh boy. Go ahead and just roll the 9d6 for me.
Oh my god.
Terrified.
Just so I can see how much this does.
Oh.
Alright. You walk away from them, and Resh is looking at you oddly. You know, seeing this expression on your face, and, you know, he himself, knowing who Fowlin was, looking rather conflicted, but he...
Continue.
But he makes no move to stop you. Nyalgish this whole time has been silent. She's has her hands kind of folded in front of her, and she's mostly looking about at the burnt buildings and piles of rubble with a look of sadness in her eyes. And she doesn't really seem... She looks at you, Narcellis, as you walk away, wondering what you're doing, but she doesn't ask. And as you lift a hand to fire off your spell, your anima comes surging out of you in this great burst of fire. And the guards don't see it coming as the flames shoot forth and connect with the top of this outpost, which is completely made of wood, meant to be a temporary structure. And the entire top of it explodes from the sheer force of your spell. Wood flies out in every direction, splintered and some burning from the fireball spell that hit it. You know, it's this large, crackling, just sudden burst of wood as the 2 or maybe 3 guards, you're not really sure, are flung from the top of this tower from the magnitude of this fire hitting them and exploding. And all of them, whether alive or dead, hit the ground and don't move, half scorched and singed by the fireball spell. And what's left now of this lookout tower is now burning as well, just like the rest of the fishing district had been at one point. And you can hear in the distance, all of you, shout of alarm as you can probably see from a little ways down the road and away, like towards the docks, other soldiers are beginning to move in on your location.
Oops.
Oops.
I will turn back toward Arca and Nia especially, and just immediately just say, go.
Aren't you coming with us?
Even
Right.
Yalkish will say, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Arca, sorry.
No. He's just like saying like, and then he's just like kind of like lost for words because this really caught him off guard.
And Yalkish herself will say, but Ishran, we have to go.
And
What?
he'll look at Nia and he'll just say, your soldiers killed Fowlin.
And she looks very hurt at that. And she just kind of takes a step back, as if kind of getting herself ready to turn and go, as the soldiers are very quickly approaching. And you see Resh looking from Narcellis to Nyalkish to Aoife. And you just see him give Narcellis, you see him give you this look of, he's, how do I describe it? He's perhaps a little upset, but he understands. And he doesn't say a word as he vanishes into the shadows and slips into yours. Aoife, Arca, what do you guys do?
Aoife,
Do you go?
Aoife, yeah. Aoife's gonna turn to Arca, and to Nilkish. And she can't even like look at Narcellis. I'm just going to say, we need to go now. I have some place safe we can go for a while, and until maybe we meet up with the others and we figure things out. So just follow me. And she'll start heading off towards the direction in which her house is. And so follow her.
Arca is lingering there. He is staring Narcellis down, like silent, kind of like silently saying with his, silently saying with his gaze, like, I'm not leaving you behind. You're not facing this alone. You're gonna have to move me.
And Narcellis just looks at him and says, You can't let the princess get caught. Go.
Ugh.
Arca, we
He,
have
like-
to go.
There's this very conflicted, angry kind of grunt, and then he just looks to Nyalkish, and looks to Nershalis, and turns to leave.
And what did you say about Nyalkish? I'm so sorry. I didn't catch that for some reason.
Oh, he just like looks between Nyalkish and Nershalis for a second.
And Nyalkish has like tears in her eyes at this moment. And she also will turn and start running after Aoife. And Arca, or no, I'm sorry, Nershalis, you watch as your friends turn away, off to follow Aoife, as the guards quickly surround you. Assuming you're the culprit, seeing as you just happen to be here next to the now burning Outlook Tower. Arca, as you turn away and begin to quickly make your escape, you notice a flash of feathers from between one of the buildings up ahead, and really it just catches your attention because you are always very keen looking out for your fellow Aarakocra. But as you see this figure kind of fully come out from one of the buildings he'd been hiding behind, it's rather small Aarakocra child, perhaps, with wings that aren't fully grown, that look far too small for proper flight, and feathers that stick out oddly in some spots. But the coloring is similar to yours, of whites and grays and a small crest that's beginning to grow on the top of his head.
Knock, knock. Here's the backstory.
Oh my god!
And you recognize this as your younger brother, Kavi.
What the fuck?
Oh,
Oh no!
What the fuck?
boy.
Oh no!
And as he sees you, he starts to run towards you.
Isn't Arca still like human form though? But
Oh, he is!
yeah.
Never mind!
Actually, no. That concentration was broken.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you're back
Oh.
to Aarakocra now.
True, yeah, so you are suddenly now an Aarakocra again.
Woo!
And so as he sees you, he starts to run towards you, waving one of his arms. And that's where we're going to end the session tonight.
Oh my god.
No!
oh boy.